have kind of the high ground and so on. But when you look at it, this book has been more peer-reviewed than any publication I've ever seen in my life. And so far, I think it's holding up pretty well.
You're still selling copies? You're still selling them?
Yes, it still sells.
Like I would, and I think you would say a little more. I mean, ask the question: why is it that Richard Dawkins hasn't published a scientific paper on any topic for the past 10 years? And the reason is he is trying to find a broader audience, and that's got to be part of your motivation as well. I mean, you don't want to. I mean, you're a practicing scientist. You are publishing papers, unlike Dawkins. I'm publishing papers, unlike Dawkins. But you want to have a broader audience as well.
Yeah, this has interests. Nobody would pay for my papers on, say, nucleosome structure. Nobody's interested in those. More people are interested in these questions, and so you want to make the discussion accessible to a wider audience. So you'd have to go to a different venue to do that. The wider public would not read about it in the journal
I
Biology.
think it's for granted, but why is the agenda to reach a wider audience? I mean, after all, given the statistics you're mentioning, it's sort of preaching to the choir in a way, since so many people are already so skeptical of the kinds of things that you want to challenge anyway. I would think that you might instead want to focus your energy on the more narrowly technical audience, or on addressing the hardcore researchers rather than the popular audience. Not that it has to be before.
Yeah. Well, because I have sympathy with the masses. I do not just, when I think of myself, I don't think of myself as just a professional scientist talking to others. I think of myself as a regular citizen. And so when I speak or have something that I know a lot of people would be interested in, I want to speak to them as well. And even though it's true that everybody is skeptical of Darwinian evolution, it's also true that some people are troubled by all these things. And it's also true that even outside the scientific culture, in many venues, TV shows and stuff like that, Darwinian evolution is, or something that passes for Darwinian evolution through the mind of a TV producer, dominates. And I remember as a kid watching the Bugs Bunny cartoons, and Bugs is talking about the origin of life. He says there was nothing, and boom, lightning and thunder, and there were 2 tiny amoeba. And this is how life arose. So I wanted it to be talked about more widely.
I'd like to backtrack to the general population and what their attitudes are to evolution. And then with the teaching in elementary public schools, apparently there's a great deal of concern amongst parents of young children that they're being taught evolution versus creation in public schools. Is this true? And how does that affect?
What the concern is that they are being taught.
They're being taught evolution rather than creations.
Well, yes, that certainly is true in most states. So, as I said, it's the default view if the scientific organizations say that evolution is true, especially with, it gets all this wrapped up in church versus state stuff in the American legal system. But evolution is certainly presented to public school kids in most states. As a matter of fact, there in the past, it only asks whether this was the result of random processes or was intelligence required to make this particular object that we're talking about right now. It does not address who made it, if there was an intelligent designer. It does not address when it was made. It does not address how it was made, and so on. All of those are interesting questions which may have answers, and you might want to pursue them, maybe even with other disciplines such as philosophy or theology. But scientific intelligent design, at least as I practice it, concerns itself simply with that question, because that is the heart of Darwinian evolution. His claim that things change over time was not really all that new, and it's really not all that radical if you think that if God is guiding these changes. You know, that's God's way of creating. Darwin's important contribution was the idea that this could be done without any intervention, without any guidance, God or anything else, simply by chance processes and natural selection. And that's exactly what we zero in on, that critical question. Is this capable of happening by chance? Or is intelligence required at some point to have produced this? Yes.
I was curious about the, I didn't get a chance to see it, but the PBS had a whole special on evolution. Did you watch it, and what's your response to it?
Well, I'll give a short response. Did you watch it, Fritz?
I did.
Okay. Well, you can give your response after me. I did see it. And it's pretty much preaching to the choir. You know, if you want to know how Darwinians view the world, it's a really good series to see. If you want to actually learn how organisms might have arisen, then it's just so much propaganda. They essentially assume the series is very much focused on, or it has religion prominently in its mind. You know, whenever it wants to, have an image, it's God and Adam and Michelangelo's painting, touching each other and touching fingers, and it uses a lot of religious imagery, has choirs in the background and so on. If you're looking for actual explanations for how anything arose, you aren't going to find them there. At one point, they're in South America with a scientist who studies butterflies, I think. And it says with great, gravity that these two, that we can see that these are two species, but until recently we could not tell how, related they were or when they separated into two species. But now that we can actually sequence their DNA, we can determine when that happened. And we found out that these two species, which look pretty close to me, separated about 10 million years ago. One went up into the mountains, one went down into the valley. So a skeptic might say, well, if it took 10 million years to, make these little changes here, that's not all that impressive. Where you're going to, how long would it take to make a butterfly in the first place, let alone one that, say, had a different colored wing? It has pretty pictures, a lot of nice animals. It's hostile to any religion that does not bend the knee to Darwinian thinking, and it shows what's his name, Answers in Genesis fellow.
Ken Ham.
Ken Ham, yeah. It has a segment on him where it shows him, holding up the Bible and walking back and forth, saying, this is what we believe, which is okay, but that's exactly the image that they want to portray of the arguments against evolution, that they're based on religion, that they're not rational, they are emotional. They have a man from Ken Ham's church with a guitar and strumming, saying, "Oh, we don't believe in evolution," singing to a bunch of kids in the Sunday school class. So they don't interview anyone who has a serious intellectual objection to evolution. They do not even interview secular scientists like, say, Stuart Kaufman and the complexity group of people who think that Darwinian evolution can't produce many things. And if they talk about a few issues that are controversial currently among Darwinists, and they come down on one side of the controversy because they think it's an easy point to make, you know, things like sexual selection and so on. So it's a typical TV program. But from what I understand, it was pretty widely ignored because it was aired in late September when everybody's attention was still focused on the World Trade Center and so on.